All right, everyone, I'm sad to report that Joe Biden is at it again. His remarkable, astonishing level of diplomatic etiquette really coming to bear with this one, calling the Japanese xenophobic. Yeah, that's going to go over real well, by the way. With Japan, the people there will just shrug it off and say, yeah, we want Japan for the Japanese. You know, there's a politician currently running for office that wants the same thing for your nation. Joe Biden doesn't appear to be on board. I guess the idea is that Japan doesn't want to be flooded with migrants and shit like that, and they're an island chain, so it's a lot easier to prevent that from happening. It's sort of the advantage that certain other nations, like the UK has this advantage. If they had a sane immigration policy, it'd be hard to overrun them, because Great Britain, of course, is an island. Of course, you can always go to one of the Commonwealth countries, like Canada, that isn't island locked, and then you can, go from there potentially. But they've got that problem. Japan is a series of islands. It's harder to get to Japan than it is to walk across a physical border, like in the Rio Grande region or something like that. It's a little bit different. And Biden thinks that Japan needs more vibrant diversity. I think that Japan simply needs to stimulate its own birth rates to stabilize its population. It's already heavily concentrated anyway. It's densely populated, especially around Tokyo and some of the other major urban centers. Japan should remain Japanese. I don't see that as xenophobic or problematic in any way. Japan's a great country. This is Joe Biden's idea of diplomacy. You're berating as bigoted and xenophobic and wrong one of our top trading partners, one of our biggest military allies. They're floating, I think, an aircraft carrier now, and the largest holder of U.S. debt outside of the U.S. public and bond form itself. Japan is a major ally and partner of the United States. It's one of the linchpins of our Asian alliance, arguably the most important of them all. A country that we've had nothing but friendly relations with now for decades and decades and decades. Fine diplomacy. I remember, and I'm wondering if the legacy media is going to pick up on this story. Probably not, of course. They'll fawn over Biden. No, thank goodness Biden pointing out those evil Japanese people want to remain Japanese. Or some bullshit like that. Yeah, stringent entry requirements. Tourism, tourists, you can go there at a whim, but if you want to reside in Japan, there are some hoops to jump through. Do you remember that time that Donald Trump visited Japan with Shinzo Abe and they were pretending that he was feeding the fish the wrong way because he just they had like a koi pond or some shit at some sort of ceremonial thing, and he dumped the food in for the fish. And they were saying, well, you're supposed to ritualistically scoop it out little bit by little bit. And of course, Shinzo Abe dumped his in shortly after because there is no such stringency. And they pretended it was a major diplomatic incident. They pretended that, oh my God, he's disrespecting the people of Japan. Bow our heads solemnly and convert to Shintoism or something. I wonder, when Joe Biden comes out and berates an entire country as being filled with xenophobes, again, one of our largest partners, one of our largest allies, are you going to criticize him in any way? The answer will probably be no. I don't expect there to be a major MSNBC piece on this particular issue. Link in the description, archived, of course. You can see just what Joe Biden was rambling about. The Japanese aren't xenophobic. The Japanese want to be left alone. They want to be Japanese. More power to them. I believe in a world where people can travel freely. I think there should be free travel pretty much everywhere. But don't invade other people's cultures. And if you intend to be there, you're going to have to assimilate. That's just the way that you're going to have to be. If you're going to move to Japan, you're going to have to learn Japanese. By the way, something I would probably be incapable of doing. So, I'm never going to establish residency in Japan. Lovely country, rather anti-gun for my tastes, but a nice country. Safe, highly developed, excellent food, cool culture, and all of these other things. I'm not even a weeb. But, Japan, I would like them to persist in being Japanese. It's a highly unique culture. It's got its own beautiful things about it. Yeah, there are always things in a culture that you may not like. Like Japan, they do the whaling thing, and I've eaten whale meat. It is really good, by the way, and I don't particularly care. The way they harvest the whales is a little bit bloody, in all honesty. But other than a few topical things where I'm like, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. It's like, it's their country. It's not my country. I don't lord over, I'm not the emperor of Japan or something. And Biden apparently thinks that he is. He's probably going to start shouting racial slurs. Back in the day, as he was raised as a kid in like the fucking 40s and 50s, he probably used some epithets for the Japanese back then during the World War II period. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he did. He probably was on board with the Internment Act and everything else under the sun. And he doesn't, and here's the problem. He does not understand, and I apologize to the people of Japan on behalf of idiot Joe Biden, because somebody needs to do this apology. I know that there are some Japanese clankers. I'm really sorry for what he said, because I'm sorry, but he's not quite all there. He doesn't quite know what he's saying or doing sometimes. He can't even control his bowel movements. Jill makes sure to put on his socks for him. I'm sure he doesn't do it himself. I'm sure he doesn't choose what he eats for a meal. He's a different kind of leader. He's a gerontocrat, like you get in some third world African nation where they take power in a military coup, and when in their 30s and then they're 90 years old, they're still clinging to power, and their elderly sons like hurry up and die. That's basically like Joe Biden. But he doesn't understand Asian diplomacy. We've seen this before. He doesn't understand diplomacy outside of the core Western sphere. So the United States, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, a few other countries, that has its own kind of diplomatic etiquette system. If you insult the leader of France or something, you might get a strongly worded letter, or the French leader might say sacre bleu and then say something back to you, but ultimately it's fine. He doesn't understand Asian diplomacy. Trump did, because he's worked in boardrooms in Japan and China and places like that. That's also why he was able to form some degree of rapprochement with North Korea, with Russia, certainly with the Eastern European countries. He had that advantage. He's done business there. He knows about the mentality. There's a different strategy involved with dealing with people in different cultures. Joe does not understand this. He's never worked in the private sector a day in his life. He's a lifelong politician, staying mainly in the Western world, largely in a legislative role. He doesn't know anything about Japanese culture. I mean, he's too stupid to be blamed, actually. Yeah, that's really great, Joe. Yeah, I was told that Trump was alienating all of our close allies across the world, but so far Joe Biden has managed to insult the Polish, one of the rising stars of Europe, by the way, the Hungarians, Japan. Actually, I'm struggling to find a nation that he hasn't tried to cajole. He's not on good terms with the Mexican president. About the only one that really likes him is Trudeau. You don't want him as a friend. Imagine the smell. Yeah. Wonderful diplomatic skills, Joe. Real cool. Yeah, alienate at a time when China is really trying to poke the bear on over Taiwan, and we're trying to strengthen our Asian alliance and buff these countries up. You choose to ridicule the Japanese for the sin of not taking in 1 million refugees or something like that, as though they'd be comfortable in Japan anyway. What the hell what are you going to do? You're going to send Palestinians to Japan? That'll go over well. The Japanese natives will love that, and the Palestinians will feel totally comfortable and welcomed. They'll find the food weird. They'll find the climate weird. They're not gonna. Most of them won't be able to learn the language fluently. They'll be outcasts within their exile country. It's a terrible idea. It makes no sense. Western leadership has totally broken down. Almost wishing that the Japanese leadership would step up and assert itself more regularly. They seem to have more sane leadership than the United States currently has. Great, let's alienate the Japanese. That'll go over well. There could be a giant, 200-foot tall mechanical Godzilla on an assembly line right now, and you want to piss them off. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think you want to fuck with the Japanese. That's about all. Peace out.